Hi, my name is Laura, and I've been doing a series on my unicorn uterus and pregnancy loss. I've been pregnant 5 times and I have my rainbow baby from that, but sadly it means that I've had 4 pregnancy losses. I've been doing a series on the miscarriage, the ectopic, the rainbow pregnancy, labour, and the 2 miscarriages since having my son. The real challenge of it all was dealing with the most recent miscarriage, the emotional fallout of it. And all along I've been describing it as pushing my feelings down and trying to move forward. But what I've not been doing is moving forward in a way that was helpful. So with my first miscarriage, because I was undergoing the scan training to become a sonographer, it didn't feel like the right time, that I wanted to be able to enjoy pregnancy or I wanted to be able to enjoy the scan course, and I didn't feel like I could do both. So when I had that result, there was a mixture of sadness and relief, and I leaned hard into the relief and the moving forward and the getting a diagnosis. And then when I had the ectopic, I focused on recovering physically and getting back into doing the scan course that I was still undergoing. Then when I had my baby, my son, I put them to the side thinking they had to happen so that I could have him. They were losses that I never acknowledged as babies. They were pregnancy tissue, and I realise now that was doing me more harm than good as thinking them that way. When I had the miscarriage after my son, I was in bits. I thought that having had him would meant that my road would be smooth ahead, and it wasn't. But instead of focusing on the emotions of it, once again, I powered on through, thinking the next month I have to have hope again. So when this miscarriage tripped me up, I had a boulder that had been following me from the first to the second to this one and to now the 4th loss. So the emotional fallout of all of this, how have I dealt with it? I've been seeing a psychologist who deals with pregnancy loss, and I found it to be so invaluable. I started seeing her, and at that point I didn't know that the emotions were so raw. They were all laying over the top of each other and all screaming to be heard, but me trying to bury them deep. And she described what I was doing as trying to keep a ball underwater. She asked me to imagine that my consciousness was like a pool, and I had emotions that were like balls floating around in my pool. And sadness was one of the balls that I was trying to push under. Grief was the ball I was trying to push down. And she said to begin with, it would have been like trying to keep one hand with that ball under. But that ball will get bigger. That ball won't go away. And so soon it requires 2 hands to keep it down. And at one point, if you don't let go of that ball, you won't be able to keep it down any longer, and it will erupt in a not appropriate place to erupt. She said that you've got to let that ball rise to the surface, controlled. You've got to let it be in your consciousness. You've got to let it bob around. You don't have to see it all the time, but you should be aware of it. So I was imagining these little balls floating around me and occasionally just pushing the sadness away and letting the focus come back on the happiness. But then realising I had to take hold of this ball and look at it. And gradually as I did this, that ball got smaller. So in my psychology sessions, I found talking about different aspects of what I needed helpful. So to begin with, it was about just labelling the emotions. Then it was about realising the depth of this. In one session I described to her the feelings as being a mountain before me, and that I could see the sun at the top of the mountain, but I was on the dark side of it. I couldn't see the path. I couldn't make my way to the top, and it felt so huge and monumental. And I don't know why, but saying that out loud made me cry. I kind of went silent. I was like, that's it. That's what it feels like. I have tried different ways of trying to find my path up that mountain. And I think first of all I had to shine a light on that rocky path that went up there. I shone a light on the emotions that were all screaming to be heard. So first of all, I pulled up one part of the yarn and I found that was sadness. I pulled at another bit of yarn and I found that was anger, but that anger wasn't as big as I thought it was. There was grief, there was jealousy, there was paranoia, and as I pulled at them, they began to unwind a little bit, but weren't quite as big as I thought they were. I can now see them ahead of me. One podcast that I've been listening to is The Worst Girl Gang Ever, and they have produced a survival guide for pregnancy loss, and the first chapter is grief. And after reading this, listening to this, I realised that my grief is going to be with me now for the rest of my life, but that doesn't mean it should stop me from living. It's made me realise that there will be good days and there will be bad days where it'll feel like I've hit the reset button and I've gone back to square one. I would advise to anybody going through miscarriage to sit in the emotions for a bit, to give yourself time to not rush back to work. I would advise that you deal with the emotions as they're happening and don't get to your fourth pregnancy loss and realise that you've got so much stuff to unpack.